its active talent.
That's a soft skill that really gets undersold in the hiring process.
How to manage in the virtual environment.
You get a diverse, cultured group of people. It's a win-win for everybody.
More conversion from candidate leads.
What does that look like in this new virtual world?
Welcome everyone to Talent Experience Live. Of course, your weekly look at the hot topics in HR, interviews with leaders in the industry, as well as hot new HR tech, covering everything that you need to know in recruitment, talent acquisition, as well as talent management. And today we have an exciting topic for you. It is Show, Don't Tell, How Innovative Video Best Conveys Your Company's Stories. And before we jump in today's hot topic, which is super relevant as video seems to be everywhere, I would like to kick things off and see where everyone is from. So definitely hop into the comment section. Tell me that you're joining me from Alaska, Nebraska, and anywhere in between. And remember that this is always live every noon, every single Thursday, and we love this interaction. So share it out to your network. Don't forget to like and subscribe, Phenom. We are coming out with content on a regular basis, if not a daily basis. Mohammed chimes in with, what is HR? It is human resources. And boy, do we have more surprises for you. This is going to be super fun. We have Chris joining us from Maryland. Welcome. We have Diane from California, Jen from PA, Sabrina from Connecticut. Thank you all for joining us. Patrick from Scottsdale. I love the interaction early. And Mohammed from GA, which I believe would be Georgia. Chris says, would love to work with you all. Love this company. I love it as well. I can't believe that they pay me to come on here every single week and talk about some super exciting topics like video. And I mentioned today is all around showing, not just telling, how innovative video best conveys your company's stories. A year with dealing with a global pandemic has taught us many things in human resources. We've come to know that top-notch video is a vital tool for candidates, recruiters, employees, as well as hiring managers. We've also learned the difference that it can make for an employer brand. But it is tradition around these parts to always kick things off with a fun little icebreaker question, separate from where everyone is joining us from. And today's question is, what is your all-time favorite music video? You may be asking, that's a little bit of a random question. How does that tie into human resources and HR? And I think the best way to describe it is music always tells a story. It resonates with people. And the visuals that go along with that tell the story even better. My all-time favorite music video is also a little bit of a guilty pleasure, but it is Sugar by Maroon 5. If you haven't seen it, Maroon 5 crashes weddings and sings their songs. It's super entertaining, even though I have been watching a lot of Driver's License by Olivia Rodrigo. But anyway, we are going to dive into the HR topics in just a moment. However, before we get started, always have to pay the bills around here. Phenom is a great sponsor of the show. And if you're interested in talking a little bit more about what Phenom offers or about another hot topic on the show, feel free to email us at txl@phenompeople.com. That is a great way to get in touch with us. Or you can always just shoot me over a note on LinkedIn or like and share this content. Tom chimes in with his favorite music video is Shine by Collective Soul. I will have to check that one out because I am not familiar with it. Apologies, Tom. But we have a very special guest today. So everyone, please join me in welcoming Stories Incorporated Head of Marketing, Jessica McFadden, where she will talk about getting the most modern and innovative secrets to using video to showcase your company stories. Without any further hesitation, let's bring on Jessica. Hey, Jessica, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you for joining us. I appreciate you taking the time, maybe skipping lunch. I know I'm going to have some great avocado toast after this, so hopefully you have something lined up as well. But Jessica, it is tradition around these parts that even the guest does not escape the infamous icebreaker question. So I have to ask you, what is your all-time favorite music video, even if it may be a guilty pleasure?
Oh, so I think my favorite one, well, all of them are the ones that tell stories. And that was before I even came to work at Stories Incorporated. But my favorite one when I was a kid, especially, was Hello by Lionel Richie, because it tells the story of a teacher, a college professor having a crush on a woman who's blind, and he's like longing for her. And there's some even really random parts where he calls her and sings hello, and she like listens on the telephone. It's really cheesy. And at the end, she has she's an art student and she has sculpted his face out of clay, even though she's never seen it.
That's touching. That could be a full-length feature film, but they jam it into a quick little music video, which is exactly what organizations are trying to do when they showcase their company culture, right? They're trying to show 365 days of what people do within the organization and how they enjoy their time into just a small fraction of a moment to really entice individuals to join their organization or even move within the organization. But Jessica, I also wanted to ask you, Stories Incorporated is a super interesting organization. So could you tell me a little bit more about what they do and also how you got your start into becoming the head of marketing and really showcasing some of these stories, if you will?
Of course. So Stories Incorporated is an employer branding and recruitment marketing content studio. And we do two things really well. First, we can facilitate interviews and capture the stories that really reveal what's great about an organization's culture. And then we take those stories and we create beautiful content libraries that help communicate those culture aspects and goals that an organization has to their audiences. And I've been with Stories Incorporated for over a year now. I started in December 2019, BP, like before pandemic. And it's been an extremely great place to work because our own internal culture is really important to us and communicating is really important to us. So it's kind of like all very meta, but it's a great place to work.
That's awesome. And I love that terminology, BP. I think that we should use that more and more to describe what this past year has been. And on that topic, I know the CEO of Phenom, Mahi Bariati, talks about this past year essentially being a time machine for organization, right? They've been forced to innovate without any notice. And I'm sure that the same thing has happened at Stories. So what's new and exciting in the terms of video production that your team has been up to since BP, if you will, or since March, right? This past year.
Absolutely. So we launched virtual story sessions. So BP, we would go into workspaces and capture culture, interview storytellers at companies right there on site. Now, we're still doing that, but we're not doing that as a matter of course. Now we're able to capture stories virtually with great video quality and audio quality. So we have developed that, service and technology. We're still facilitating the interviews and making sure that we're bringing our strategies and skills to be able to capture those great stories. But now storytellers can be telling their stories from their home, or we might capture stories outside their home, or we might capture stories outdoors for outside the office, or we were just kind of pivoting and flexing to make sure that we're capturing stories in the best way for organizations where the people are located. And so it's really expanded our ways to get those stories.
Now, I'm sure that when you're in the office, safety is always a priority when you're recording video. But also, with some of those instances where you may not be in the office or organizations are really focused on showcasing the safety precautions that they're taking, because that's at the top of everyone's mind if they're on the job market right now is, am I going to be jam-packed into an office the way that I was a BP, right? It feels a little dirty at this point. How are organizations and you at Stories helping companies showcase how important safety is to them and what precautions they're taking?
Well, the way that we are capturing stories, we're still weaving together elements of B-roll, and some stories are captured virtually and some stories are captured in person. So we can go in and capture your warehouse, procedures and show team members wearing PPE. And then we can also capture the culture of being a distributed team member who is coming to you from her home office, right? And then we can weave those together, the elements with, graphics and video and photography to really tell that story. So this is different than when organizations do a live stream like we're doing now. We're weaving together different cultural content so that way candidates, employees, audiences can, really understand a company's culture or positions cultures. We're capturing lots of different types of stories.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned the showcase of PPE in combination with perhaps not PPE, right? We're communicating right now. I'm not wearing a mask. You're not wearing a mask, and we're completely safe. And I feel like the sky is almost the limit when it comes to showcasing organizations and what their company culture has evolved into. It's no longer about showcasing the snack wall, right? Or the fancy coffee machine or anything like that. So what types of stories are being showcased now? And I know you have an example, but I wanted to see if there's something that stood out to you before we showcase that clip and show what stories organizations are sharing now.
Of course. So some important stories that we're capturing now are stories of how companies have cared for their employees in the pandemic, how they have supported them, whether they have supported them through flexibility as they pivoted to a distributed workplace, how they've shown them, empathy and great leadership. Also, we're capturing stories of diversity, equity, and inclusion, because that is really important to all of us right now, but especially if organizations have taken that on as a greater commitment in light of what society has shown us is an essential recently. But the items and the stories that really showcase that support and care, they're relevant now, but they're also going to be relevant for a very long time to come. So getting employees to share how they felt cared for is going to communicate to candidates the real culture of an organization.
All right. Well, I know that they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, which makes video must be worth 1,000,000 words. Let's see what one of those stories look like, and we'll air that clip right now.
Great, thanks.
When I started in Phillips, Hurricane Maria hit the Puerto Rico island, and it was a devastating hurricane for us. I remember driving up to the north of the island to be able to try to get some cell signal to let my boss know that I was fine. The first question that came out was, "Are you okay? Is your family okay?" And he said, "I want you not to worry. We're getting you out first flight that you are able to get out of Puerto Rico and into the States." They helped us relocate to Cleveland, lived there for 4 months until the island got back up to its feet. They cared for me so much that they went through all of that trouble to be able to relocate not only myself, but my complete family, and making sure that we were okay. That to me is just remarkable.
That's an awesome clip. And one thing that jumped out at me around that was it goes through the story itself. So I'm sure there's some sort of outline. I'm sure that there's some back end preparation that goes into it. But one thing that really stood out to me is it never seemed like this individual was reading off of a script, right? You couldn't see their eyes going back and forth. And although it is, great to have those things prepped, that's why movie scripts are so successful. You're never going to see Brad Pitt with the script up in front of him or his eyes going around like that. What tips do you have for companies trying to showcase a story where they want to plan it out and make sure that key points are hit, but also not to make it seem like their individual who's being recorded is reading from a script in an effective way?
Well, as you can see from Erica's story that just played, that shows how she was cared for and received support from her company. Obviously, nobody wrote that for her. That was something that through our facilitated interview with Stories Inc., she just naturally showed that. So that's why we really believe in the power of facilitating stories with our amazing program managers. Hey guys. Who really are experts at having natural facilitation of natural stories. And we never script things out. We might lightly prepare, and that way the storytellers can feel comfortable and feel excited to share their stories on camera, but we're not scripting out anything for them. So it's a lot different than when you see one of those videos that features team members, which are great, where they're kind of, you can tell they're reading the boilerplate or the company core values. This is different. This is someone who, through their personal, specific, relatable story, is sharing what's real about the culture. And we find that that's very powerful.
You know, it's an awesome point that you mentioned, because you talk about the company culture as well as the core values and things like that. And I'm sure all of that information is accessible to a candidate before they, log on to as they go through the career site and the process and everything along those lines. But to hear it genuinely and natural is something that speaks volumes, right? To see individuals living those core values or telling the stories that are truly meaningful probably comes a bit more natural. And I believe that we have another clip to showcase what one of these really genuine stories looks like. Is it all right if I air that clip now?
Yeah, that'd be great. I love
awesome.
This.
We had a holiday party back in December of 2018. That was one of my favorite moments here. I'd only been with the company, honestly, for about 2 months, not even. But to walk in and have all of these employees that I've literally just met. Hey, Shanerical, hey, come here, come sit here. And it was just really just a warm reception. And I felt like everyone had known me for, years.
That's awesome. It's super fantastic. Now I have to ask, because that did come off as so genuine and so really true, how do you necessarily get the interviewer to maybe get some emotion out of individuals and make sure that they are having a little bit of life, which the video brings to life? What are some tips there?
Well, for one, we really have a longer interview than that perfect story that Shanerical tells right there. But, and you develop a rapport during that interview process. Additionally, we work with the employer brand teams internally at companies to help them identify who will be the people who are going to best communicate the culture and who are storytellers. So we work together to identify who will be a great person. But we found that, every employee has a great story to tell. And it's so powerful and believable. And you connect with it when you hear someone like Shanerical talk about what belonging has been for her within her experience versus just reading a line on a website that says inclusion and belonging are really important to us. When you hear it from someone who might be your colleague if you come and work there, and gosh, don't you want to work with her? So we just really believe, and that's what everything is founded upon, is how powerful is a team member story.
I love that. And what separates that story for me was the B-roll that was genuine. So I have to ask, and this is something a little bit off topic, but do you just kind of get in a room with individuals and have the cameras rolling all the time and capture some of those just easy back and forth moments for B-roll, or is that something that's a little bit more scripted as well? Not necessarily scripted, but it's, hey, I'm turning the camera on, act casual.
It's a combination of both. And especially right now in the pandemic, we're weaving in B-roll that might already exist, and we're capturing B-roll safely. I just saw on our company Slack channel, my colleague Christian, who is our in-house incredible videographer and just a producer and a great visionary, he was capturing video yesterday through a window of a person working at home. And so this person was working at home, and Christian is not even in the room with this person who's working. He's capturing it with his mask on through a window. And so we've tried and do lots of different things in order to capture the real culture at an organization. And of course, it's going to be different in every place. And right now, different depending on how your people are working, which is really running the gamut right now.
Yeah, and when you talk about how people are working, I think flexibility is super important to that, right? We have, people who are working not the typical 9 to 5 hours. They may hop on 7, 8 o'clock at night to work on a project because they had something that was, they had to handle in the middle of the day, whether it be a loved one, family, children, taking the dog out, whatever it may be. So when it comes to the flexibility of storytelling, how are organizations able to tell a story effortlessly both today and tomorrow in the future, where some of these nuances of the pandemic may not resonate a year or 2 years from now?
Yeah, we're running into that and how to create content that's going to endure. Of course, the world has changed, so you want to show the changes, but we're all hopeful and seeing how things are improving pandemic wise. So on one hand, we're probably not going to be capturing a lot of like team member hugs on camera, but we are weaving the stories in together to show both the in-home experience, the workplace experience. We're Safe Set certified, so we're still capturing places in the workplace because a lot of people are back at work, and a lot of people who are essential workers have always been at work. So we're proud to be able to go in and safely capture those stories, and you can weave them in together amongst the storyteller examples of one person on camera telling their story. Also weaving together different stories can best show the real diversity of voices in your organization too. So there's the power of one person telling, and there's the power of compilations of different people. And of course, you can always recut. If it's not a live UGC video, you can always go in and tweak if our safety practices and culture, and we're doing that all the time for our partners.
And one thing that's so important about this time right now is I personally love the history of organizations and seeing what they did through traumatic times. So getting this content now as an archive for maybe a future project or something along those lines could be vital to telling that story over time, right? I don't think anyone is going to look back at 2020 necessarily fondly for the most part. However, it's still a part of your history that you want to say, this is what we did when we were faced with crisis, when we had to make adjustments, and here is what we learned and where we are today. Nothing
will showcase your real authentic culture at an organization better than how the organization cared for the employees during a crisis like this, a long crisis. And so, yeah, that content is never going to be dated. Yeah, I don't think you're going to be able to necessarily use stock video for what your company culture was like during this time, right? It's going to be a huge challenge, as I know a lot of organizations do kind of leverage stock video in times, and people notice, right? That's something that they can pick up on and say, hey, that doesn't feel genuine or real, as opposed to the approach that Stories is taking. One challenge that I imagine is probably, I know at least from my instance, when we try and cut videos at Phenom, not everyone's always super excited to raise their hand and say, put me on camera.
let me tell my story. Let me, be in this video. And that's just people's comfort zones. What advice do you leverage to ensure that people are excited about being on camera and getting that really great end product for that?
Again, we working hand in hand with the employer branding, marketing, talent stewards within organizations to identify the people. And then once we are honored with that introduction, doing everything we can to make them feel comfortable and to develop that rapport. And the idea of sharing your story should always be a way to amplify your voice and an honor. And if someone is shy or doesn't want to appear on camera, of course, we'll never push that ever. Right. And you definitely want to highlight those people who will feel that it lights them up to show them.
That's awesome. And I know you have an example of somebody who was excited to showcase their story and hop on camera and do that. So we'll air that clip now.
Cool, thanks.
I have been here for 15 years, and 14 out of those 15, I have been involved with the Hispanic Business Resource Group and the Network of Women Business Resource Group. As a proud Hispanic woman, those were very important things to me. All throughout my career, AstraZeneca has been so supportive in terms of our culture, our diversity of talent and thought.
Yeah, so, she was an involved member of an ERG. So, already you can look to your ERGs as great sources of voices who might want to tell a story. And if you're trying to hire for certain positions, then, highlighting people who are thriving in those positions to tell their stories too.
Yeah, one thing that I know we've talked about previously on the show is inclusivity and also job descriptions, right? And showcasing individuals of that diverse background via video is an effective way to do that. It's an effective way to showcase people of all shapes, colors, sizes, and everything in between is a part of this organization, and they're all a part of different departments. It's not just what you would typically think based upon the job description. One thing that I also wanted to ask is the remote work environment has quite literally opened up global doors. How does this come into play for video production? When we think of the new workforce, I know Phenom is hiring people that are all across the globe right now. As companies continue to do that to be effective, how do you leverage those stories remotely without hopping on a plane and flying to their house and shooting video through their window, right?
Right.
Like Christian mentioned.
Yeah, so as you can see from that video that just played, that was captured virtually. So it didn't matter where she was based, and I can't even recall exactly, but that we didn't hop on a plane to go capture her story. We captured that in great HD quality virtually. So we sent her a guided tech pack, and oh, my dog is joining me.
It's okay.
We sent her a guided tech pack, and we guided her through the process of setting up the technology, lightly prepared her. That way she knew she looked amazing on camera. And some organizations are even utilizing green screen. So we can send a portable green screen, and that way your backgrounds look, uniform, and that way you're able to share the story without being distracted by the printer and the corner and things like that. So it depends on the organization. Other places love showing the diversity of home office environments, and dogs and children are totally welcome to join to share your flexibility story. So that's been such an exciting way for us to be able to give our partners lots of different options and how to best communicate their culture. And then the global barriers have gone away. If we can send it to them, they can be part of the story. And now we don't have to limit the story gathering to just the people who could come into the main office on our filming day.
That's awesome. I love that, especially, we talked a little bit about varying schedules as well. Getting everyone in the office at that time, having the flexibility to record anywhere, whether it be green screen or showcasing, family, loved ones, everyone in between. I've met so many new coworkers over this past year, coworkers that I don't even know if they can type because they're dogs or seem far too young to actually be allowed to work. But nonetheless, it's fun to see the two options that you have there. Jessica, this has been an absolute blast chatting with you today. I do want to ask you, if somebody wants to learn more about stories or chat with someone on your team on how they can showcase their stories best, where can they go to find more information and potentially ask you more questions?
Of course, please do. You can come to storiesincorporated.com, or you can join the conversation with us on LinkedIn. So we're Stories Incorporated on LinkedIn. And yeah, we would love to meet some new people and hear your stories.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I wish you a very safe rest of your day, and hopefully we'll get to meet in person at some point and talk more about this. But in the meantime, be safe, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Awesome. There you go. That was Jessica from Stories Inc., head of marketing, chatting all about how you can best showcase your organization's stories, even in the time of a pandemic, and what that really does to impact your company culture as well as your recruitment efforts. As always, I wanted to thank everyone for joining, but before I run through the lengthy list of people who joined today, I do want to share a clip from last week where we talked about filling mission critical jobs with innovative campaigns. And potentially one great way to do that is to campaign with maybe some of the stories that you link up with stories to showcase and tell. We chatted with Fraser Donnell, head of talent acquisition in Canada at L3 Harris, and he dove really deeply into campaigns, and I could chat a little bit more about that or just show the clip. So let's hear the clip.
Obviously, we were trying to build our talent brand because we are a new talent brand. We used to be L3 Technologies, and we used to be Harris Corporation. We're now L3 Harris, and that name is really just starting to get some traction now. So we had a lot of extra work to do in terms of re-attracting people to our company. But I think from a Phenom people perspective, just capturing all those past applicants from let's say 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, depending on what they were doing, and curating that talent and segmenting and building up those talent communities. That's sort of been the key for us. So, I mean, you can use automation, of course, when you've got new candidates coming into the CRM that meet certain criteria, and you can automate, those messages to them about, hey, join our talent community, thanks for joining, or some kind of a welcome. It's something that just introduces, what their discipline is and what it means at L3 Harris, just to get them sort of acclimatized to how they could see themselves working for us, reintroducing our brand and reintroducing, all the roles that we have and positions that we think these people that we've curated would be interested in taking a look at.
Definitely check out last week's episode. Fraser had a ton of great insights around campaigning and how they find success for those really niche positions over there at L3 Harris. As always, thank you all for joining today. But before you go, don't forget to like, subscribe to Phenom. We are constantly pushing out content as well as a Talent Experience Live episode every single Thursday. I can't wait to see you next week. And of course, I am talking to you, Jen, Craig, Mohammed, Peter, Tom, Christopher, as well as Patrick. Thank you again for joining us. Can't wait to see you next week. We have a very special episode all around International Women's Day, so definitely tune in for that. And everyone, I hope you stay safe, healthy. We'll see you then.